I walked out of the funeral home with my husband's ashes in a small mahogany box and a federal envelope from his estate attorney that contained the password to a private investment account holding $73 million, and the deeds to a beachfront resort in Key West, and a Cozen Wazen one-year boutique hotel in Savannah. My name is Hannah. I am 29 years old, and I had just buried my husband Marcus on the rainiest Tuesday morning of October. Before I tell you what I overheard when I walked into my own kitchen 40 minutes later, hit that subscribe button and tell me in the comments where you are watching from. If you have ever been stabbed in the back by the people who were supposed to wipe your tears, you are going to want to hear how I turned a stack of forged paperwork into 8 federal indictments in less than 2 weeks. Marcus had collapsed during a morning run on a quiet Saturday 3 days earlier. Aortic dissection. The doctors said he was gone before the paramedics even reached him. He was 34 years old. He had run the same route every weekend for 6 years. We had been married for 4. I sat in my black wool coat in the back seat of the car my mother-in-law had insisted on driving, pressing the wooden box against my chest, like it could somehow give me back the warmth of the man it used to contain. When the car pulled into our driveway in our quiet suburb outside of Charlotte, I noticed 3 other vehicles already parked along the curb. My older brother Caleb's silver pickup truck, my parents' beige sedan, and the leased convertible belonging to my younger sister Bethany and her husband Damon. They had told me at the cemetery they were going home to give me space. Apparently they had decided to give me their company instead. I let myself in through the side door that opened into the mudroom. I needed a moment alone before I had to perform gratitude for casseroles I would never eat. I slipped my heels off, set the urn down carefully on the bench by the coat hooks, and that is when I heard them. Damon's voice, low and confident, drifting in from my own kitchen. She's not going to read it. Trust me. She's been on Xanax since Saturday. We hand her the pen, we tell her it's for the funeral home, and by the time she snaps out of her grief fog, the brokerage account has a new authorized signer, and we are halfway through liquidating the inventory. I froze with one hand still on the doorknob. Damon is 36 years old. He runs what he likes to call a luxury watch reselling business out of a leased storefront in Greensboro that has not turned a profit in 2 years. He owes my parents $46,000 from a bridge loan they took out against their retirement account last spring. I knew this because Marcus had been the one who reviewed the paperwork as a favor and told my father he was making a mistake. My sister Bethany jumped in next, her voice high and bright the way it gets when she has been drinking white wine since noon. Mom, you have to be the one to bring it up first. She listens to you. Just say something like, "Oh, sweetheart, you don't need to be burdened with paperwork right now. Let your family handle it. Cry a little. She'll fold." My mother Diane laughed. She actually laughed, 3 days after her son-in-law dropped dead on the pavement. Hannah has always been a follower. She married Marcus because we told her he was a safe choice. She'll sign whatever I put in front of her if I tell her it's what Marcus would have wanted. My father Roger's voice came next, gravelly and tired. Just don't drag this out. Damon needs the inventory cash by Friday, or the leaseholder is going to start eviction proceedings on the storefront. And we cannot afford to lose what we already loaned him. Bethany, go pour your sister some wine. Get her loose. Caleb, you stand near the front window and watch for her car. She's been at that funeral home for almost 2 hours. Then my older brother Caleb spoke, and that one cut the deepest. I still think we should just push for the house. If we can get her to deed the house over to the family trust, we can refinance and pull 200 grand out by the end of next month. Damon's storefront, my truck loan, Mom and Dad's retirement, all of it solved. Marcus didn't have life insurance, right? She said that at the wake. I had told them that. I had told them my husband, my brilliant, careful, paranoid husband, had let his life insurance lapse because he wanted to put the premium money into index funds. It was the only lie I had ever told my family, and Marcus had asked me to tell it on the day we got married. He had looked at me across our tiny kitchen table on our honeymoon and said, "Hannah, I love your family, but I do not trust them. If anything ever happens to me, I want you to have a head start before the vultures find out the carcass is worth something. Promise me you will tell them I died poor." Standing in my mudroom with my husband's ashes a foot away from my hand, I finally understood why he had made me promise. I am a paralegal. I work in the white-collar litigation group at a regional law firm in Charlotte. For the last 6 years, I have spent 40 hours a week organizing exhibits for federal fraud trials. I know what wire fraud looks like in a chat log. I know what attempted estate theft looks like in a notarized power of attorney. And I had just heard 4 members of my own family openly conspire to commit both, against me, in the kitchen where my husband had made me coffee every morning for 4 years. I picked up the urn. I walked into my powder room off the mudroom. I sat on the closed toilet lid for 90 seconds with the box on my knees, and I let myself cry one single time, hard, into a hand towel, until I was certain the redness in my eyes would look like grief and not rage. Then I splashed cold water on my face, dabbed it dry, picked up the urn again, and I walked into my own kitchen with my shoulders rounded and my chin trembling. My mother saw me first. She launched out of her chair at the island like she was on a spring. "Oh, my baby. Oh, sweet Hannah, come here." She wrapped her arms around me and the urn and pressed her cheek against my hair, and I could smell the Chardonnay on her breath, the same Chardonnay I had bought for our anniversary dinner 2 months ago. Bethany was already pouring me a glass. Damon stood by the window in a navy suit that I knew for a fact had not been paid for. Caleb was sitting at my kitchen island with a manila folder open in front of him, and as my mother hugged me, he calmly closed the folder and slid it under a placemat. "Sweetheart," my mother cooed, guiding me to a bar stool, "we have all been so worried about you. Sit down. Bethany, get her some water too. She looks dehydrated. Hannah, honey, we want to talk to you about something important, but only when you're ready." "Are you ready, baby?" I let my lower lip wobble. "I just want this day to be over, Mom." "I know, sweetheart. I know." My mother took my hand and stroked it. "And that is why we are here. We do not want you carrying any of this paperwork burden by yourself. You should be resting, not dealing with banks and insurance companies and the mortgage." Damon stepped forward, smooth as oil. "Hannah, I had my attorney draft something this morning. It's a simple temporary power of attorney. It just lets me handle the funeral home billing, the utility companies, anything that needs a signature in the next 30 days. You don't have to lift a finger. I'll take care of everything." He pulled a thick stapled document from his briefcase and slid it across the marble island toward me, along with a heavy black fountain pen. I took the document with shaking hands. I let my eyes scan the first page, like I was struggling to read through tears. It was not a temporary 30-day power of attorney. It was a full, durable power of attorney, granting Damon authority over all my financial accounts, all real property, and all securities and investment accounts in my name, or in the name of my deceased spouse, with no expiration date and no requirement of accounting back to me. It was the most aggressive estate predation document I had ever seen, and I had seen a lot of them. Bethany squeezed my shoulder. "It's just so you can grieve, sis. We've got you." Marcus had taught me, early in our marriage, about something he called a poison signature. He was a forensic CPA before he started his consulting firm. He explained that a poison signature is a signature you have legally registered with your bank and your brokerage as a duress signal, where you intentionally alter one specific letter in a specific way that nobody but you and your fiduciary would ever notice. The moment that altered signature appears on any document presented to your financial institutions, it triggers an automatic federal fraud alert, the document is voided, and the institution begins recording every subsequent communication from the party who presented it. Marcus and I had registered ours together at our private bank in Charlotte 3 years ago. Mine involved making the lower loop of the H in my last name into a sharp closed triangle instead of a soft curve. I picked up Damon's heavy fountain pen. My hand was shaking, but not for the reason any of them assumed. I signed every page he had flagged with a little yellow tab. I made the H of my last name into a triangle every single time. I signed 11 pages. Damon snatched the document back the second I dotted the last signature. He could not even hide his smile. He tucked it into his briefcase and clicked the locks shut, and then my mother actually said, out loud, with my husband's ashes still on the counter beside the fruit bowl, "Now, sweetheart, While we're handling things, your father and I were thinking it might be a good time to look at consolidating the estate. Marcus's name is still on the house deed, and that's going to create tax problems. Roger thinks we should put it into a family trust. We've used the same one for years. I let 2 tears fall. I let my voice catch. I cannot think about any of that right now, Mom. Can we please talk about this in a few days? I just need to lie down. My father, Roger, who had not stood up to hug me once, finally spoke from his chair across the room. Hannah, the longer you wait, the more the IRS takes. Marcus would not want that. Sign the trust paperwork. We brought it with us. Tomorrow, I whispered. Please. I promise. Tomorrow morning, I will sign whatever you need. I just need to sleep. There was a long silence, while 4 pairs of eyes calculated whether they could push me harder. Bethany broke it first. Of course, sis. Tomorrow. We'll come over with breakfast. They filed out 15 minutes later. My mother kissed my forehead. Damon patted my arm in a way that made my skin crawl. Caleb hugged me last, and as he did, he whispered in my ear, I'm proud of you, Hannah. Marcus would be proud too. Then he turned and walked out, taking the manila folder with him. I locked every door. I set the alarm. I walked into Marcus's home office, the room he had not allowed anyone but me into for the entire 4 years we lived in this house, and I sat down in his leather chair, and I picked up the burner phone he had left in the bottom drawer, the one he had told me about exactly once. I dialed the only number programmed into it. A man answered on the second ring. Mrs. Hannah. I am very sorry for your loss. My name is Patrick Donnelly. I am the managing partner at Donnelly Vance, your husband's estate firm in Atlanta. He told me to expect this call within 72 hours of his death. May I assume you are calling because something has happened? I told him everything. The conversation in the kitchen, the signed power of attorney, the poison signature, the pressure to sign a family trust transferring my house. He listened without interrupting for almost 10 minutes. When I finished, he was quiet for a moment, and then he said, Mrs. Hannah, your husband was one of the most cautious clients I have ever represented. He left instructions for exactly this scenario. If you authorize me, I will execute the David Marcus protocol tonight. Do it, I said. It will be done by sunrise. By 7 a.m., the $73 million in the Vanguard private wealth account will be moved into an irrevocable trust with you as sole trustee and sole beneficiary. The 2 commercial properties will be retitled into a Delaware holding company that you alone control. Your home will be retitled into a separate revocable trust that requires biometric verification for any transfer. And every brokerage and bank account associated with your husband's name will be flagged for the poison signature alert you registered 3 years ago. Anyone who attempts to use the document you signed tonight will trigger a federal investigation the moment they walk into a bank. I exhaled for what felt like the first time in 3 days. There is one more thing, Patrick. My brother-in-law's storefront in Greensboro, the luxury watch shop. Can you find out who owns the building? Keys clicked on the other end of the line. Then Patrick laughed, a quiet, surprised laugh. Mrs. Hannah, your husband acquired that building in 2022 through a Delaware LLC. Damon has been paying rent to a holding company that, as of 7 a.m. tomorrow, will be 100% yours. He is also 4 months in arrears, and his lease contains an acceleration clause that allows the landlord to demand the full balance of the remaining lease term, plus penalties, if he is more than 90 days late on any payment. He is currently at 123 days. I stared at the framed photograph of Marcus on the desk in front of me. He was smiling at the camera from a fishing boat off the Florida coast. I had taken that picture on our honeymoon. He had known. Somehow, 4 years ago, my husband had known. Patrick, I said, I want a default notice taped to the front door of that storefront by 9 a.m. tomorrow. Triple the back rent under the penalty clause, demand the full acceleration, and give him 72 hours to pay, or I want the locks changed and the inventory seized. With pleasure, Mrs. Hannah. I hung up. I sat in my husband's chair for a long time. Then I went into our bedroom, closed the door, and slept for the first time in 3 days. The next morning, my family showed up at 8:30 with a box of donuts and a fresh manila folder. I let them in. I made coffee. I let my mother and Bethany fuss over me. I let Damon explain the family trust paperwork in his slow, condescending voice, like I was a child being told how a checking account works. He slid the trust deed across the counter. I picked up his fountain pen. I made the H into a triangle. I signed the deed transferring my house, the house Marcus and I had picked out together, into the family trust controlled by my father. Damon could not even wait to leave the kitchen. He slid the document into his briefcase and pulled out his phone and began typing. I watched him from the corner of my eye. He was texting somebody, probably his attorney, probably already trying to refinance a house that, thanks to Patrick Donnelly working through the night, was no longer legally mine to transfer. The deed I had just signed was worthless. It was a piece of theatrical paper that would, the moment any of them tried to record it with the county, light up the registrar's office like a Christmas tree. At 9:17 that morning, while my family was still sitting in my kitchen pretending to grieve, Damon's phone rang. He glanced at it, frowned, and stepped out onto the back porch. I watched him through the kitchen window. He started pacing. His face went red, then white. He started shouting. He came back inside and grabbed Bethany's elbow. "We have to go. Right now." "What's wrong?" my mother asked. "There's some kind of paperwork issue at the storefront. I have to deal with it." He could not look at any of us. He grabbed his briefcase and his coat, and he and Bethany were out the front door in under a minute. My father watched them go with narrow eyes. "Something is off." "I'm sure it's fine, Daddy," I said softly. "Damon is so smart. He'll handle it." I refilled his coffee. He grunted and stayed for another 45 minutes, watching me, before he and my mother finally left. Caleb lingered. He helped me clear the cups. At the front door, he hugged me again, and again he said, "I am proud of you, Hannah." And again he walked out with empty hands and an empty smile, and I closed the door behind him and I locked it, and I went straight back to Marcus's office and I called Patrick. "It's done," he said before I could ask. The notice was served at 8:47. Damon is currently standing in front of his storefront screaming at our process server. He has 72 hours. Good. What's next? "Mrs. Hannah, in 12 hours, your sister and brother-in-law are going to realize they cannot refinance your house. In 24 hours, your parents are going to realize the family trust deed is unrecorded and unrecordable. In 48 hours, Damon is going to walk into a bank to try to use the power of attorney to draw against your husband's brokerage account, and the moment he does, the FBI's Financial Crimes Unit will be notified. I need you to do nothing. Stay in the house. Order groceries delivered. Do not answer their calls. Let them panic." I did exactly that. For the next 2 days, I sat in my house with the curtains drawn and I let my phone ring. 87 calls in 48 hours. Voicemails escalating from sweet to confused to threatening. My mother accusing me of being ungrateful. Bethany sobbing that Damon was going to lose everything. My father telling me I was going to be cut off if I did not call him back immediately. Caleb, the most chilling, leaving 3 calm voicemails saying we needed to talk in person, that there had been some kind of bank error, that he was sure we could fix it together as a family. On the morning of the 3rd day, Patrick called. He just walked in. Wells Fargo branch on Tryon Street. He presented the durable power of attorney and asked to wire $2.8 million to a business account in his name. The teller is currently stalling him. 2 FBI agents from the Charlotte field office are en route. Your husband's poison signature did exactly what it was designed to do. I closed my eyes. Are they going to arrest him in the bank? Yes. Good. By noon, Damon was in federal custody, and Bethany was calling me from the back of an Uber, screaming that I had ruined her life, that there was some kind of misunderstanding with the bank, that I needed to come down to the FBI office and explain that I had authorized the transfer. I let her scream into my voicemail for 90 seconds and then I sent her one text message. It said, "I never authorized the transfer." The signature on Damon's document is a registered duress signature. Marcus filed it with our bank in 2022. Anyone who presented that document committed federal wire fraud the moment they walked into the lobby. Please do not contact me again. She called me 41 more times that afternoon. I did not answer. That evening, my parents showed up at my door. My father pounded on it for 10 minutes. My mother screamed through the mail slot that I was a viper, that I had set up my own family, that my dead husband had poisoned me against them. I sat in Marcus's leather chair in his office and listened on the front door camera, and I did not move. The next morning, I got dressed. I put on a dark gray suit that Marcus had bought for me when I was promoted to senior paralegal. I drove myself to the federal courthouse downtown. Damon's arraignment was on the docket at 10 a.m. I sat in the back of the gallery. Bethany was in the front row, sobbing into a tissue. My parents were beside her. Caleb was sitting one row behind them, perfectly composed, scanning the room. He saw me. His face did not change, but his eyes did. They went very flat and very cold. And in that one look I understood that my older brother had not been a passive participant in the kitchen 4 nights ago. He had been the architect. The judge called the case. The federal prosecutor stood up and read the charges. Wire fraud, attempted bank fraud, conspiracy to commit wire fraud. The prosecutor then said something that made my mother gasp loudly enough that the bailiff turned to look at her. Your Honor, in addition to the defendant Damon Whitaker, the government is filing concurrent indictments against 4 co-conspirators, all of whom were captured on home security audio at the residence of the victim discussing in detail the plan to defraud her, and all of whom signed or witnessed the fraudulent power of attorney. Those individuals are Diane and Roger Lawson, Bethany Whitaker, and Caleb Lawson. We are requesting that warrants be issued for their arrest immediately following these proceedings. My mother screamed. My father stood up like he was going to fight someone. Caleb did not move at all. He just turned around very slowly in his seat and he looked at me, and he mouthed 2 words across the courtroom. You knew. I held his gaze. I did not nod. I did not smile. I just looked at him until the federal marshals walked down the aisle and put handcuffs on him and on my parents and on my sister, right there in the gallery, in front of 40 strangers, and a judge and 3 reporters, who I am told had been tipped off by an anonymous source about an unusually large family fraud case being arraigned that morning. I did not tip off the reporters. Patrick Donnelly did. Marcus had paid him very well, for a very long time, to be exactly the kind of attorney who knew when to tip off reporters. I walked out of the courthouse alone. Marcus's brother, my brother-in-law James, was waiting for me on the steps. James lives in Portland. He had flown in for the funeral and stayed at a hotel, the way Marcus had always asked him to. He was the only member of either family who had asked me, at the wake, what I needed. He had sent me a text every morning for 4 days that just said, "Thinking of you," no pressure to respond. He hugged me on the courthouse steps. He did not ask any questions. He drove me home and made me a grilled cheese sandwich, and sat with me on the couch while I finally, let myself fall apart. Not over my parents, not over my brother, over Marcus, over the man who had loved me enough, 4 years ago, to imagine this exact morning and protect me from it before he ever even let himself believe his own family might be capable of what they did. It has been 7 months now. Damon took a plea deal for 6 years in federal prison. Bethany cooperated against him in exchange for 2 years of probation and the loss of her real estate license. She has not contacted me since the sentencing, which is the only kindness she has ever extended to me. My parents each pleaded guilty to conspiracy and were sentenced to 14 months at a minimum security facility in West Virginia. My father lost his pension. My mother has filed for divorce from prison. Caleb went to trial. He represented himself. He was convicted on all counts. He is currently serving an 8-year sentence at a federal correctional institution in Kentucky. He has written me 4 letters. I have not opened any of them. I sold the house. There were too many ghosts in it, Marcus's and otherwise. I bought a small bungalow on the water in Street Augustine, where the air is warm and where nobody knows my last name. I kept the resort in Key West and the boutique hotel in Savannah, and I hired Marcus's college roommate, who has an MBA from Wharton and has been quietly running both properties for a year now. I am told they are profitable. I did not keep all the money. I set up a foundation in Marcus's name that funds free forensic accounting and legal services for widows and widowers under the age of 40 who are facing predatory family members during probate. I named it the Quiet Husband Foundation. The first beneficiary was a 31-year-old widow in Houston, whose mother-in-law was trying to claim ownership of a small chain of dental practices her late husband had built from nothing. The mother-in-law is now under investigation by the Texas Attorney General. The widow sent me a card last month. It said only, "He told me you would understand. Thank you." I keep that card on the windowsill above my kitchen sink in Street Augustine. People ask me sometimes if I feel guilty, if I miss my family, if a part of me wishes I had handled it differently, called my mother, given them a chance to apologize, kept the family together for the sake of holidays and birthdays and grandchildren I might one day have. I want to be honest with you. I do not. I do not miss them. I do not regret a single phone call I made in Marcus's office that first night. The family I had was not a family. It was a long con my parents started running on me the day I was born, and my older brother was their best apprentice, and my sister married a man who was happy to finish the job. They did not love me. They loved what I might one day be useful for. Marcus loved me. Marcus, who was quiet and careful, and a little paranoid, and who watched my family at every Thanksgiving with eyes that I now understand were taking notes. Marcus loved me enough to spend 4 years and a great deal of money building an invisible wall around my future, just in case. He never told me he was doing it. He let me keep loving them, right up until the day I could not anymore. If you are watching this, and you have ever sat at a holiday table and felt a small cold knot in your stomach when your relatives talked about money, please listen to me. That knot is not paranoia. That knot is information. Your body is telling you something your mind is not yet ready to hear. You do not owe your peace to people who would auction it off the moment you turned your back. You do not owe explanations, second chances, or one more Christmas to people who have already shown you, in 1,000 small ways, exactly who they are. Walking away is not the end of a family. Sometimes walking away is the only honest beginning of one. If this story moved you, please hit subscribe. Leave a comment telling me about a moment you saw your own family clearly for the first time, and I will read every single one. Take care of yourselves out there. Lock your doors. Trust the quiet ones. And if a man ever asks you to register a poison signature, sign it the same day.